Stop relying on medicine to keep you strong. I know that sounds dangerous, but if you're over 60, prescriptions cannot protect muscle, balance, or recovery. In this video, I reveal the one daily protocol that actually keeps you alive and independent. In over 4 decades of clinical practice, I've seen something unsettling. We assume loss of life begins with a heart attack or a stroke, but most lives after 60 begin to unravel much earlier, with loss of strength, loss of balance, loss of resilience, and loss of recovery capacity. That's the real danger zone, and prescriptions alone do not protect you there. One of the wisest physicians who ever lived understood this deeply. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara spent his life studying why some people stayed strong and capable well into extreme old age. His philosophy was simple but revolutionary. Medicine repairs parts, but health protects the whole. He believed longevity wasn't about reacting to breakdowns, but about strengthening the body's internal resilience every single day. That idea has been quietly lost in modern care. Another physician who speaks bluntly about this today is Dr. Peter Attia. He makes a point most people don't want to hear. The greatest predictor of survival in later life is not lab numbers, it's functional capacity. Can you stand? Can you walk steadily? Can you recover from stress, illness, or a fall? Can your body bounce back? That's what actually protects your life. Now listen carefully because this matters. This video is not anti-medicine. Medicine is essential. Think of it like a seatbelt and absolutely necessary in a crash. But a seatbelt does nothing if the engine fails, the brakes are gone, and the driver is exhausted. What I'm going to share with you is the engine, the brakes, and the driver's nervous system. The foundational protection medicine cannot provide. There is one natural, repeatable protocol that quietly shields the heart, preserves muscle, stabilizes the brain, and strengthens immunity, all at once. It doesn't replace your doctor. It works with medical care, and almost no one explains it as a unified system. Before we go further, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from right now? I read every comment, and I want you to stay with me because we're going to move through 4 interconnected layers. Each one builds on the last. And the final layer, the one most people completely overlook, may be the most powerful survival system you have left after 60. Let's begin. There is a quiet misunderstanding that settles in after 60. It's not spoken out loud, but it shapes decisions. The belief is that as long as the prescriptions are taken, the problem is handled. Blood pressure controlled, cholesterol lowered, numbers adjusted into acceptable ranges. On the surface, this looks like protection, but underneath, something far more important continues to erode. Modern medicine is extraordinary at managing markers. It can lower a number, suppress a symptom, or slow a specific disease pathway. What it does not do, and was never designed to do, is rebuild the biological systems that actually keep an older body alive and independent. Muscle mass, balance control, mitochondrial energy production, stress regulation. These systems determine whether a body withstands illness, recovers from a fall, or survives a hospitalization. They are not restored by prescriptions. This is where the illusion forms. I've seen it countless times. Lab work looks excellent, imaging is stable. The chart says well managed, yet walking speed shortens. Standing feels less secure, stairs require more effort, confidence quietly fades. Nothing appears urgent until suddenly it is. The simplest way to understand this is with a mechanical analogy. Medicine functions like a seatbelt. It is essential. It saves lives. But a seatbelt does nothing if the engine is failing, the brakes are worn down, and the electrical system is unstable. The vehicle may look intact, but it is no longer reliable. Aging bodies work the same way. When strength declines, balance becomes fragile. When energy systems weaken, recovery slows. When stress hormones stay elevated, immunity drops and inflammation rises. These changes don't announce themselves with pain or alarms. They show up as hesitation, fatigue, and vulnerability. That is why so many older adults are told everything is fine, yet they feel less capable year after year. What truly separates resilient aging from silent decline is not the absence of disease, but the preservation of function. How quickly the body moves, how strongly it grips, how fast it recovers after physical or emotional stress. These are the signals that quietly predict survival. When attention shifts from disease alone to function as protection, something changes. The focus moves away from reacting to breakdowns and toward maintaining the systems that prevent those breakdowns in the first place. This understanding sets the stage for what comes next, because the most powerful of those systems is one many people were taught to ignore entirely. And it starts with muscle. Muscle is one of the most misunderstood tissues in the aging body. For decades, it was framed as optional, cosmetic, something for athletes or aesthetics. After 60, many people quietly accept that muscle loss is simply part of getting older. Inconvenient, but not dangerous. That assumption is biologically false. Muscle is not decoration. It is a regulatory organ. It controls blood sugar by absorbing glucose. It stabilizes joints and protects bones by absorbing impact. It maintains balance by coordinating movement before the brain even has time to react. And perhaps most overlooked, muscle releases signaling molecules called myokines, chemical messengers that communicate with the immune system and the brain. When muscle fades, these signals go silent. The result is not just weakness. The result is a body that becomes fragile under stress. Blood sugar becomes harder to control. Bones fracture more easily. Immune responses weaken. Cognitive resilience declines. Recovery slows, not because the will is gone, but because the biological infrastructure is no longer there. This is why muscle loss is so tightly linked to mortality after 60. The image that explains it best is simple. Muscle acts as the body's shock absorber. When it's strong and responsive, stress is distributed and managed. When it's thin or inactive, every stress hits harder. A stumble becomes a fall, a flu becomes a hospitalization, a minor injury becomes a long decline. I've watched two individuals with the same diagnosis move through recovery in completely different ways. One regains independence quickly, the other struggles for months. The difference is rarely age alone. It is strength, not gym strength, not maximal effort, but the presence of daily signals that remind the body it is still required to support, stabilize, and move. Muscle does not need intensity to survive. It needs reminders. Short, controlled signals that say, this tissue is still essential. When those signals disappear, the body begins to recycle muscle for energy, quietly, efficiently, relentlessly. That process accelerates with age unless something interrupts it. This is why preserving muscle is not about workouts or performance. It is about survival capacity. It is about having enough physical reserve to stand confidently, to absorb stress, and to recover when life inevitably applies pressure. And yet, muscle alone is not enough. Even strong tissue cannot function if the energy systems that power it are unstable, or if the immune system that protects it is compromised. That brings us to the next layer, where aging quietly drains vitality long before illness appears. Energy loss after 60 is rarely sudden. It does not arrive as a dramatic collapse. It shows up quietly, almost politely. A little more fatigue in the morning, a longer recovery after a poor night of sleep, an illness that lingers just a bit too long. Most people accept this as aging itself, but biologically something much more specific is happening. Inside every cell are structures responsible for turning oxygen and nutrients into usable energy. These systems are not fixed. They respond to signals. When those signals weaken or become inconsistent, efficiency drops. The body still produces energy, but it does so unevenly, like an aging power grid that can no longer meet peak demand. Lights turn on, but they flicker. Systems run, but without reserve. This loss of efficiency changes how the body behaves under stress. Muscles fatigue sooner because they are not being fueled reliably. The immune system hesitates, taking longer to recognize and resolve threats. Repair mechanisms that once operated smoothly begin to stall. None of this feels dramatic at first. It feels like slowing down. In reality, it is a body that no longer receives clear instructions about when to produce energy and when to repair. The immune system is especially sensitive to this shift. Defending the body requires enormous energy. When energy production becomes inconsistent, immunity becomes cautious. Infections that once resolved quickly linger. Inflammation stays active longer than it should. Healing stretches from days into weeks. The body is not failing. It is conserving because it does not trust that energy will be available when needed. This is why many older adults describe feeling functional but fragile, capable yet easily tipped off balance by illness, stress, or poor sleep. The underlying issue is not weakness of will or lack of effort. It is a repair system that no longer completes its work on schedule. Another layer of this problem lies in timing. The body relies on daily rhythms to coordinate energy production, immune activity, and cellular repair. When these rhythms lose consistency, the body drifts into a state of partial recovery. Repair begins, but does not finish. Energy is produced, but not stored. The result is a constant sense of being almost rested, almost recovered, almost well. This is also why rest alone often fails to restore vitality. Sleep without proper biological cues does not guarantee repair. Nutrition without timing does not guarantee energy. The systems require alignment, not just inputs. When metabolic and immune systems receive clear, repeated signals, the body becomes more predictable. Energy steadies instead of spiking and crashing. Illness resolves more cleanly. Recovery shortens. The body regains confidence in its own capacity to respond. But there is a final constraint that determines whether any of this repair is allowed to complete. A system that can override muscle preservation, suppress immunity, fragment sleep, and drain energy even when all other conditions appear favorable. That system is not metabolic. It is not immune. It is neurological, and without addressing it, even the most well-supported body remains stuck in survival mode, unable to fully restore itself. There is a system that quietly governs everything discussed so far, yet it is rarely addressed with the seriousness it deserves. It does not show up on standard blood tests. It cannot be captured by imaging. And because it feels intangible, it is often ignored. But biologically, it may be the most powerful determinant of survival after 60. The nervous system is the body's master regulator. It decides whether the body is in a state of repair or a state of defense. When this system is balanced, muscle is preserved, immunity functions efficiently, sleep restores tissue, and the heart operates under manageable strain. When it is not, even the healthiest habits struggle to deliver results. With age, the nervous system becomes easier to push into a chronic state of alert. This state is often described as fight or flight, but that phrase understates its impact. In this mode, the body behaves as if danger is constant. Stress hormones remain elevated. Blood sugar rises unnecessarily. Muscle tissue becomes expendable. Immune responses are suppressed. Repair is postponed. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. In danger, survival matters more than rebuilding. The problem is that many older bodies remain locked in this state long after the threat has passed, or when no threat exists at all. This is why some people appear to do everything right and still struggle. Strength fades despite effort. Energy never fully returns. Sleep feels light and unrefreshing. The body is receiving signals to build and repair, but those signals are overridden by a nervous system that refuses to stand down. The image that best explains this is a master switch stuck in the on position. Lights burn constantly. Systems overheat. Components wear out faster than designed. Nothing is broken, but everything degrades prematurely. Chronic nervous system activation accelerates muscle loss by signaling the body to conserve energy through tissue breakdown. It weakens immunity by diverting resources away from defense and repair. It fragments sleep by preventing the deep stages where restoration occurs. It increases cardiovascular strain by keeping heart rate and blood pressure elevated longer than necessary. Over time, this state becomes familiar. The body adapts to tension as its baseline. Calm begins to feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, and because this process unfolds slowly, it is often mistaken for normal aging. It is not. What is often overlooked is that the nervous system responds powerfully to rhythm, light, breath, and environmental cues. These inputs tell the body whether it is safe to repair or necessary to remain vigilant. When those cues are misaligned, bright stimulation late in the day, irregular sleep timing, constant cognitive input, the nervous system never receives permission to shift into restoration. When it does receive that permission, something remarkable happens. Muscle preservation improves without additional strain. Immune function becomes more efficient. Sleep deepens. Recovery accelerates. The body stops behaving as if it is under siege. This does not require force or intensity. In fact, force often backfires. The nervous system responds best to signals of safety and predictability, slow breathing patterns that extend exhalation, reduced sensory stimulation as evening approaches, consistent timing that reinforces biological rhythm. These signals quietly tell the body that defense is no longer required. When that message is received consistently, the body finally completes the repair it has been postponing. This is why the nervous system is the most overlooked survival system in older adults. Without addressing it, strength signals struggle to register. Energy systems remain unstable. Immune repair stays incomplete. With it, the body regains the capacity to recover, not because it is pushed harder, but because it is finally allowed to rest deeply enough to rebuild. This is not about relaxation as a luxury. It is about regulation as protection. And it is the final layer that allows everything else to work. Longevity is rarely protected by force. It is protected by balance. This idea guided the work of Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who believed long life depended less on reacting to disease and more on maintaining the body's internal resilience. He often reminded colleagues that medicine repairs parts, while health preserves the whole. That distinction becomes critical after 60, when survival is shaped by everyday function rather than dramatic medical events. At this stage of life, loss rarely begins with a diagnosis. It begins with instability, a body that cannot recover quickly, strength that fades under stress, energy that becomes unpredictable. These changes determine whether independence is preserved or slowly surrendered. They are not abstract concerns. They decide whether a person can stand confidently, walk safely, and return to baseline after illness or injury. Modern medicine remains essential. It stabilizes risk. It treats disease. It intervenes when something goes wrong. But it does not rebuild the systems that protect life between medical appointments. Muscle strength, metabolic efficiency, immune resilience, and nervous system regulation operate largely outside the reach of prescriptions, yet they govern how well treatments are tolerated and how fully recovery occurs. This is why preserving capability matters so deeply. Dr. Peter Attia emphasizes that the goal of later life is not simply more years, but the ability to live those years with function intact. When strength, energy, and recovery remain stable, life after 60 stays flexible rather than fragile. The protocol described here is not extreme or heroic. It is quiet and repeatable. It supports the systems that absorb stress, restore energy, and allow the body to complete repair. It does not replace medical care. It provides the foundation that care depends on. The body is not failing with age. It is responding to the signals it receives. When those signals support balance and restoration, the body responds with resilience, and that resilience is the most reliable protection life can have after 60.